Rev up your engines!
Well, people are freaking out because Toyota has recalled hundreds of thousands of Toyotas because they might catch on fire. Here's the catch. It's actually a very tiny thing that a fool could fix with basically nothing. Turns out that they made replacement batteries that were too small. So if they replaced the battery in your car with one of their crappy replacement batteries, it wasn't tall enough and it can move around and eventually it might start a fire. Pretty rare. But all you'd have to do is put a couple spacers in it and it wouldn't move around. And if you're worried, rather than waste your time driving your Toyota to the dealer, open hood, look at the battery, grab it. If it's tight and you grab it and it doesn't wiggle at all, it's perfectly fine. Now, if it does wiggle, then you can either take it to them and waste probably a day of your time, or just put some spacers on the hold down, right? I've been doing that for ages, making spacers out of plastic or big washers on the bolts, under the bolts to hold them in place so they don't wiggle around, you know. I got some people that are all worried about this. How's my car going to start on fire? Just check the battery. You know, who wants to waste their time spending a day going to the dealer? Then they'll say, well, we don't have that part in stock. You got to wait, blah, blah, blah. All it is their replacement batteries were the wrong size. So they got to put a different battery hold-on plastic part to hold it in. You can easily do it yourself. Or if you replace the battery yourself and you didn't buy it from Toyota, odds are the battery probably fits totally tight. And you don't even have to do it. So just go check it. If you can't wiggle it, doesn't move around, you don't need to do anything. Well, people normally think Japanese sports car stuff, hey, they're really reliable. Well, here's 5 that you should stay away from. The Mazda RX-8, it was pretty much a dismal failure. Nice looking cars, but those rotary wankle engines, they never worked out in cars. Number 2 is the Mitsubishi Eclipse, not too sporty, but a little bit sporty. They're just cheaply made. You know, they're not great. Especially if you're talking about buying a used one, I'd stay away from them. The Honda CRX Del Sol's another those kind of sporty-ish car. It looks more sporty than it is. And that was the problem with the Del Sol. They were tinny, they were cheap, they rattled, they weren't fast. They looked a bit sporty, but they did not drive sporty. They were a dismal failure. They didn't sell that many of them. And unless you're a Honda freak and you want a weirdo car, I wouldn't advise buying one. And similar to that is the Toyota Paseo. They were cheaply made. They rattled around. They didn't have much pickup. They were a Toyota. They'd run a long time, right? But they were pretty much a dismal failure in the market, too. And the last one is the Suzuki Samurai. Samurai! What, the Samurais are supposed to commit ritual suicide, right? The Samurai should have all killed themselves. Most of them broke on their own. They were too small, rattled around, and if you wanted to drive them hard, the engines didn't have enough power. They'd blow, and they blew head gaskets all the time. So, you know, unless you want a toy to play around with where you're going to be fixing it all the time and then searching like mad for parts because they don't sell them in the United States anymore, stay away from the Suzuki Samurai. So say sayonara to the Samurai car. Well, Toyota's gone on it cheap. Now, if you buy a car, you get one smart key. That's it. They don't even give you 2, right? What if you lose one? Well, hey, Toyota, you're screwing up on this one. Now, this covers 14 Toyota models sold in the United States. So if you're thinking about buying one, ask them. You know what I'd say the deal cutter is? You're going to spend $40,000 to $60,000 for a new vehicle. They only give you 1 key. I'd say, you give me another damn key or I'm not buying this car. Absolutely ridiculous. What, has Toyota lost their mind? If you lose a smart key and you don't have one, it's a pain getting another one made, right? You always want to have at least 2 no good keys. Now Toyota's selling your car for all that money and they're not giving you 2 keys. On Toyota, I don't care if you have a supply chain problem. Too bad. Figure it out. People spending that much money on a vehicle and they don't get 2 keys, they only get 1 key. That's just disgusting, Toyota. Your bean counters have taken over. Guess what? You need a new bean counter. You need somebody to go in and say, look, they're paying all this money for a car. Give them at least 2 keys, right? Not just 1. They're making a smart key, which is a pain in the butt if you lose one, and then they're only giving you 1. Now, it'd be okay if they just gave you 1 regular key, right? And then you could go get one made cheap at a locksmith. But in this case, no. It would cost you quite a bit of money to get an extra one made because it's a smart key. They cost a lot of money. They have to be reprogrammed. Shame on you, Toyota. Well, here's one from my Harold Home, Houston, look at this. Here's lack of quality in Ford. This is a brand new 2023 Ford pickup, and the headlights don't match. It's got one headlight on one side and a different kind on the other. This was a 2023 Ford Super Duty pickup. You know those cost a lot of money. They start at almost $50,000, and I've seen people spend upwards of $90,000 on those things. They can't even put the right headlights on it. Quality control Ford, you need to go back to the drawing board. As they used to say, the buck stops here. Me, I'd fire Farley. I'd fire the guy. Like, hey, you haven't fixed problems. Last year again, Ford led the country in most recalled vehicles, right? And what are they doing about it? Blah, 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 but they're not fixing the problem. I'd say fire the guy. Find somebody else who can actually fix it. I'm sure all the people under him are afraid because it's like chicken pecking order. He's the top chicken on the top, right? But it's time to get rid of that chicken and put a rooster in. He'll get something done. You pay that much money and the headlights don't even match. Well, here's an interesting one. Kevin Likes Cars says, I thought you could answer my question. I'm 28. I work for tech. I make $60K a year, but it's mind-numbing. I put on 30 pounds in the last year sitting on a desk. I thought about being a mechanic. Now, Toyota dealerships start at $17 an hour. I'm also thinking about editing post-production. More creative. What do you think? Okay, well, one, you don't want to work for a dealership. They pay squat. $17 an hour. What, in California? They're paying fast food workers $20 an hour. And you're going to take all that stress working at a dealership for $17 an hour? They make the money, not you. I would never get involved in that. If you want to learn how to fix cars, learn as fast as you can, someplace where you get trained, and then start your own business like I did. It's a lot of work, a lot of energy. Some people don't like dealing with the public and fixing cars. You can't do that, don't do that. You say video and post-production. Well, you said you're sitting on your butt and it's gotten bigger and bigger. You're going to be sitting on your butt even more, watching video and producing it, you know? The problem with that is you got to find a place that makes money, right? Billions of guys editing videos out there, right? Some of them make really good money if they're working with a professional guy who knows what he's doing and makes a lot of money. There's a lot of people out there that make nickel and dime stuff. So it's kind of a rough situation that you're in. I mean, if you're making 60 grand a year, if I were you, I'd go further into what you're doing and maybe sideline editing. Maybe it could lead somewhere over time, like people used to. They'd have a solid job and then they'd have a side job, and maybe if it hit off and I met somebody who was really good and you became the editor, some famous YouTube guy and made some good money, yeah, but I'd continue where I were if I were you and do the editing as a sideline and see where that leads. I wouldn't advise going and being a mechanic. You're going to make less than what you're making now. Moose3971 says, I smell antifreeze in my 2013 Malibu. I noticed that most when the defrost is on, it doesn't overheat. There's no fluid on the floorboard. I assume it's not a heater core then. I'm not losing antifreeze, really. This is the last Chevy I ever owned. Can you help me? Well, yeah, you think it's not the heater core, but here's the thing. It probably is. You say you aren't losing any antifreeze, but what happens with those piles of crap are the heater cores are poorly made, and they seep. They don't really leak, but they seep. So antifreeze seeps on the coils. You put the defrost on, the air blows through the coils, and you smell the antifreeze. I can just about guarantee you that's what the problem is. Now, what you want to do is have a guy like me pressure test your system, pressure test. Leave the pressure tester on for like half an hour. And if the pressure goes down, you got a leak somewhere, right? You're going to see it. If it's leaking under the car by the engine, you'll see it. It would be dripping then, right? But the heater core just seeps, and you may not drip to the ground. And anyways, if it was leaking, it wouldn't leak on your floorboard. It would go down the drain and leak under the car. That's how heater cores and AC, that's why when your AC gets wet in the summer from heat, it drips water under your car. That drain is where it would end up going. But I can just about guarantee you it's the heater core going out, and they cost a fortune. You got to tear your whole dash apart to replace the heater core. And that's what is going on. Now you say this is the last one you'll ever buy. If it doesn't overheat and it runs okay, my advice is sell the stupid thing and don't ever buy another one of those piles of crap. Caldera Cowboy says, I'm looking for a under $20,000 truck to haul small loads and explore four-wheel drive trails in Hawaii where I live. There's a 96 Hilux, 100,000 miles, imported from Japan. I'm wondering what you think of this versus a second-generation Tacoma that I can get from the mainland for 12 grand and shipped to Hawaii for 2 to 3. The Hilux is a 2.8 turbo diesel. Okay, you definitely want to go with the second-generation Tacoma instead. Japanese vehicles are different than ones in the United States. So, getting parts, people work on them. A lot of times it's not that easy to do. But number two, the Hilux is a turbo diesel. They didn't sell those in the United States. You can't get parts for them. People don't know how to work on them regardless of where they came from because they didn't sell that model in the United States. And I have had people import those things, and that's a 96. Crap is going to break. I knew a guy imported one to Clarksville. You know what happened? The engine blew up. Nobody knew how to work on it, couldn't get parts for it. I looked at it for the guy, but I go to my data system and there's no data. It's a diesel engine. It was never imported to the United States. So my data system has no information on it, right? Stick to the Tacoma, get it from the West Coast and ship it to Hawaii. You can't beat that. They can run forever. Everybody knows how to work on them. They don't need to be worked on that much. And really, you're better off not having a diesel living in the United States. Now, hey, if you were in Australia, I'd go the other way around because they got diesels there all the time. Everybody knows how to work on them. But not in the United States. People don't work on diesels. You can't get parts for the Japanese cars or information on how to repair them. But the Tacoma, anybody can work on them. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.